Emily Carter felt an unfamiliar heaviness in her home that Sunday morning. The sun streamed warmly through the windows, yet the air seemed charged, tense in a way she couldn't ignore. Years of shouldering responsibility alone had shaped her life raising her son, Ryan, after his father vanished before he could even form memories. She had become accustomed to the endless routine, morning chaos, late-night homework emergencies, fixing broken appliances, soothing scraped knees, and making decisions no one else would. She had mastered the art of smiling through exhaustion, of staying calm despite anxiety, and of placing herself last because that was what mothers did. But now, watching Ryan move through the living room, stuffing the final items into his bags, Emily experienced a strange mix of pride and sorrow. He had secured a position across the country, the kind of opportunity she had always hoped he would find. Yet, standing there, she wished she could pause time just for a moment. Ryan moved efficiently, tossing chargers, notebooks, and other belongings into his suitcase, trying to keep the farewell light. Still, Emily noticed a subtle vulnerability in his expression, an unspoken recognition that this was more significant than either wanted to admit. She offered small words of encouragement, but her voice faltered at times, and she swallowed the emotions threatening to spill. She understood that this wasn't about losing him, it was about letting him flourish. Yet, after over 20 years of centering her life around him, stepping back felt like losing a piece of herself. Suddenly, Ryan stopped, holding a jacket, and met her gaze with an intensity that startled her. "Mom," he said quietly, "there's something I need to ask you." Emily blinked, expecting a practical request money, help with a task, or permission to take a keepsake. But the seriousness in his tone made her heartbeat quicken. She nodded for him to continue. He set the jacket down, rubbed his neck, and let out a steadying breath. "I want you to start living for yourself again." The words caught her completely off guard, freezing her in place. She had imagined countless things, but not this. Ryan went on, speaking rapidly now, as if rehearsed. He had noticed all the opportunities, joys, and friendships she had sacrificed over the years, how she had hidden her own desires to focus on him. Once, he had pretended not to notice, too young to understand. Now he wanted her to embrace a life not entirely defined by motherhood. He reminded her that she was still young, still warm, still deserving of more than quiet nights and routines. Emily's eyes pricked, not from sorrow, but from the realization that her son had truly seen her sacrifices. She tried to laugh it off, but Ryan gently refused to let her hide behind humor. "Mom," he said softly, "I want you to be happy. Really happy." Her heart swelled with a mix of pride and vulnerability. He had spent his life being protected, and now he was guiding her to care for herself. The quiet house seemed too small for her thoughts. She realized she had no clear idea what happiness meant for her anymore, having lived years in perpetual motion. She reached out, touching Ryan's arm, and he smiled with warmth and certainty. In that simple, intimate gesture, the weight of change settled over her, a passing of the torch. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she watched him gather his final belongings, preparing for a life of possibilities. A quiet courage stirred within her, dormant for decades. When Ryan hugged her before leaving, he whispered, "Promise me you'll try." She nodded, unable to speak. The house fell silent, but it no longer felt empty. It hummed with the promise of something new. Emily inhaled deeply, sensing a life once hers again. Though she didn't yet know what to do with it, the afternoon found her wandering the house, sorting through old boxes she hadn't opened in years. Each object reminded her of the life she had lived solely for survival and motherhood. Amongst forgotten keepsakes, she discovered a photograph of her and Daniel Woods from nearly a decade ago. They weren't posing as a couple, yet the closeness between them was undeniable. He had been her closest friend, offering support, laughter. and companionship when she had felt overwhelmed. Emily remembered the gentle patience in his presence, how he had never pushed for more, how she had gravitated toward his warmth without realizing it. Raising Ryan alone had required careful boundaries, and she had kept Daniel at arm's length to protect herself and her son. Yet now, holding the photograph, she felt both regret and longing. The years hadn't erased her feelings, they had simply been shelved. Ryan's words, urging her to live for herself, made her consider the possibility of reconnecting. Footsteps drew her attention. Ryan returned briefly for a forgotten charger. He noticed the photograph in her hand, raising his eyebrows in quiet acknowledgement. "You kept that?" he asked. Emily shrugged, feeling unexpectedly exposed, and Ryan gave her a soft, understanding smile. Sitting beside her, he observed the photo, remarking gently on the happiness Daniel had once brought into their lives. The memory struck Emily harder than expected. She had spent so long protecting stability that she hadn't realized how fully her son had understood her quiet sacrifices after Ryan left again. She sat alone, the photograph resting on her lap. Daniel's calm smile and attentive presence washed over her in memory. He had never demanded attention, he simply offered it. Her fear now was different, a fear of having let something meaningful slip away. Yet curiosity nudged her forward. She found herself dialing his number, heart tightening with each ring until his familiar voice answered, "Hello." The sound of him brought a rush of emotion, nervousness, excitement, and relief all at once. Neither spoke immediately. Years of unspoken words filled the silence. Then Daniel asked, almost in disbelief, "Emily, is that really you?" Her lips curved into a small, emotional smile. "Yes, it's me," she whispered. Hearing him speak reignited something dormant. The distance and years had not weakened their connection. They had strengthened the anticipation. Emily agreed to meet him in person, a decision thrilling and terrifying at once. Doubts flickered. What if he had moved on? What if the spark was gone? But she pushed them aside. The possibility of rediscovering a lost connection, of embracing her own life, was too compelling to ignore. Emily spent the night turning over countless possibilities in her mind, imagining every nuance of the upcoming encounter, the laughter, the pauses, the words that might falter between them. She thought of the patience and understanding Daniel had always shown her, how he had never demanded anything, yet offered everything in quiet, unwavering support. That realization struck her with a force she hadn't anticipated. A void she hadn't fully acknowledged was now glaringly evident, shaped by years of absence. Each memory of Daniel now felt sharper, more vivid, as though the passing time had polished the bond they shared rather than dulling it. She pictured his familiar smile, the slight tilt of his head as he listened, the calm steadiness that had always anchored her. She understood now that she had never stopped caring, not once. Even through all these years of distance and silence stopped by morning, nerves twisted in her stomach, a whirlwind of anticipation, fear, and hope. She selected a simple outfit, one that felt like her, and reminded herself that honesty above all would be enough. The drive to the small lakeside cafe Daniel had suggested was a mix of excitement and trepidation. Her mind danced through every possible scenario, awkward silences giving way to laughter, tentative conversation deepening into something undeniable. The cafe, tucked quietly by the water, seemed to await them, a witness to everything about to unfold. When she arrived, he was already there, standing near the window as though he had known she would come. The years had softened his features slightly, yet he was unmistakably Daniel. A tight, unfamiliar mix of relief and longing coiled in her chest. Their eyes met, and a sudden calm cut through the storm of nerves she hadn't realized she carried. His slow, gentle smile mirrored hers, and for a brief instant the room shrank, leaving only the two of them in a bubble of suspended time and memory. He stepped closer, voice steady yet soft. "I'm glad you came." Those simple words carried a weight that neither time nor distance could diminish. Emily felt the carefully constructed walls around her heart begin to crumble. The past no longer seemed like a chain, but a bridge, one she was ready to cross to embrace the life she had long denied herself. All hesitation, fear, and doubt dissolved in his presence, leaving only clarity. She wanted this. She wanted him. She was ready to take the first step toward a chapter she had postponed for far too long. Guided by the courage inspired by her son and the quiet love that had waited patiently, Emily felt herself finally free to step forward. The morning after Ryan had left, the house felt different, emptier, yet lighter. There was no heavy loneliness, only a sense of uncharted possibility. Moving through her quiet kitchen, coffee in hand, she listened to the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional bird outside. It had been so long since she had allowed herself the simple act of being alone without rushing, planning, or holding herself together for others. The emptiness was no longer painful. It was a space to fill with her own choices, her own desires. Ryan's words from the night before echoed in her mind. "Mom, you've spent your life giving me courage. Maybe it's time someone gave some back to you." That gentle challenge stirred something deep within her, a quiet daring, a readiness to take a step she had avoided for decades. She no longer wanted to merely exist. She wanted to live fully, to feel, to embrace hope, and maybe, just maybe, to let love back into her life. The photograph of Daniel Woods, left on her table, caught her eye. His calm smile, the warmth in his gaze, and the memories they shared no longer felt like a past to leave behind, but a path inviting her forward. Reaching out to him had once been terrifying, but now it felt like the natural progression, a reclamation of a part of herself long kept hidden. She picked up her keys, reminding herself that hesitation was just fear in disguise. Driving through streets familiar yet alive with new possibility, her mind replayed every fragment of memory, his patience, his laughter, the quiet moments where nothing needed to be said, yet everything was communicated. Daniel had never pushed, never demanded, yet had always been there when life became heavy. People like him were rare, those who loved quietly, fully, respectfully. At the cafe, her heart quickened. Doubts flitted through her mind. What if he doesn't feel the same? What if time has changed everything? But hope was stronger, a quiet certainty that she wanted this, that she wanted him. When their eyes met, warmth spread through her chest, compressing the years between them into a single moment. Time seemed suspended. Daniel's slow smile carried recognition, relief, and an unspoken invitation. Emily realized she had been holding her breath far longer than she knew. He stepped forward, and the first words he spoke struck her like a gentle wind. "I'm glad you came." Every fear, every doubt, every lingering what-if dissolved. The life she had built without him had been necessary and strong, but incomplete. Now she could explore what had been quietly waiting all along. They sat at a table by the window, morning light washing over them as conversation began. It started awkwardly, touching on everyday matters, life, work, mutual acquaintances, but soon evolved into memories, laughter, and feelings that never truly faded. Emily felt herself loosening, her voice softer, more authentic. Daniel listened, patient and attentive, giving her space to speak without judgment. It felt astonishingly familiar, like returning to a place she had always belonged, a home she had closed behind her years ago. The years apart had not weakened their bond. It had merely waited quietly for her recognition. Now, noticing it felt like drawing breath after holding it too long, urgent, necessary, and exhilarating. Their talk shifted naturally to the future, to the choices that now lay before them. Emily understood the courage Ryan had gifted her, the courage to live, to embrace, to reach for something she had long denied. The past was no longer a weight, but a lesson, one that empowered her to step forward. Daniel's presence reminded her that love could be gentle and patient, requiring no perfection, only presence and care. By afternoon, Emily felt clarity she hadn't known in decades. The weight of responsibility, the nights of solitary vigilance, had shaped her, but not defined her. Life could now include joy, connection, and love without guilt. She looked at Daniel, seeing the same understanding in his eyes, a shared realization that time had strengthened rather than diminished them. Her smile was slow, deep, carrying relief, hope, and the quiet thrill of a fresh beginning. Daniel reached across the table, brushing her hand, and Emily felt the grounding, quiet power of touch. Neither rushed. Neither forced words. They simply allowed the moment to exist, alive and unhurried. Emily realized love did not always demand grand gestures or declarations. Sometimes it began quietly, with the willingness to show up, to listen, to open one's heart. This was the start of such love, the love that had patiently waited for her readiness. As sunlight streamed through the window and the soft cafe sounds enveloped them, Emily felt a profound sense of possibility. She was no longer only a mother, a caretaker, a woman defined by duty. She was a woman stepping into a life of her own choosing, ready to embrace warmth, companionship, and joy long postponed. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that life could be gentle, beautiful, and full of love once more.